patreon.com/Geek Aloud. This is the Gaming Enforcement Agency, episode 91, if I'm not mistaken. Unky Dunky second slotting it this evening. And sir, it appears as though you're filling that slot quite well. Have you been at the gym?
Oh, a little bit, mate. We're going to have to go widescreen soon to fix these bad boys in the screen soon enough. That's all right. We'll make it work.
We need the NBN V2 so we can get Unky Dunky coming through full. Sorry, Billy, your third slot. How are you, mate?
I'm doing very well. Maybe you can just use the camera that you use for Ace. He seems to do it quite well.
Ace, how you doing, man? Shout out to you. All right, viewers, welcome back. It's been a while. You'll have to bear with us. I can tell you we have 2 games and then some sort of bizarre historical journey of Bully's diary. But we'll get to that shortly. Let's start with games, interrogation, and deliberation. You asked for it. Here it is. Game 1 this evening. Helldivers 2. Unky Dunky. You have to lead investigate, mate, because all I do on the battlefield is follow you around and try not to shoot you, not always successfully.
I'm glad you prefaced that with try. Because there was a grenade moment last night, guys. I don't want to get into it. It made me very sad.
You may or may not see it in the footage, mate.
No, we had to bring back G.E.A. for this very special moment to talk about this year's game of the year so far. There might be another one knocking on the
point of order. So far, excuse me.
Well, I mean, who knows?
Nothing is dethroning this.
That's John. Bully might have something to say about the game that we're going to talk about next.
Second one
he might have something to say. But for me, this so far, I haven't put this much time in a game for a long time. I'm currently sitting at 83 hours in Helldivers 2. So I think I'm well versed to talk about this game and how good it is. Yes, it's had hiccups along the way, but I think the devs have been
that
really
was
good
me throwing grenades.
No, that was definitely you throwing grenades. But the devs have been really good at updating us, even though there's been times where the servers have gone down. I was a day one adopter, so it was good that it sort of worked at the start. But then you had that first weekend where, the word got out how good this game was, and then servers couldn't keep up, and they had to, give us more servers, and you had to wait in queues to get into the game, and, people were leaving their game idle so they could just stage up in the game, but that was also causing server blockage.
No, pump the brakes right there, because I have a bone to pick with the CEO. I'm blanking on his name. He's active on Twitter and he's doing fine work. I love Helldivers 2 and I love most of his tweets, but the one where he asserted it was the PS5 gamers hoarding server space, bullshit, I say. Bullshit. Go back and check the install video. I pointed out that the servers weren't kicking people when they put their PS5 into rest mode. It had nothing to do with the gamers. It was 100% his porting team's fault. When they ported to the PS5, they neglected to check, what happens if they put it in rest mode? Do we dislodge them from the server? No, 100% developer issue. And then he tried to blame the gamers and... Did I get angry? Yes, I did. Sorry, Unky, back to you.
I don't know if that's good. I mean, yes, players will sort of look to the best way to keep playing the game. If they like the game, I guarantee there's plenty that took advantage of the fact that there was no kick out and they were literally hoarding those servers. So
was it you or was it Ace? It was either you or Ace, Unky, that told me you put your PS5 into rest mode in launch week and came back the next day, a full 24 hours later, pulled the PS5 back out of rest mode and he was still in his ship. That is.
I don't know if I told you that definitely did happen to me. So
yeah, that is in no way the gamer's fault. Their servers, the game needs to acknowledge. I'm going into rest mode. Disconnect from the server.
I'm saying it absolutely
put in, and then they tried to blame us for it. Get out of here! Infringement notice. Do I have a button? 2-point infringement notice for blaming the gamers. Sorry, Unky, back to you.
No, I'm still saying gamers will sort of, take things to their advantage if it's there as well. So, yes, their fault, but I'm pretty sure there's plenty of people taking advantage saying, I don't want to be sitting there for a queue for 20 minutes when I can just leave my game on. So
nobody is taking advantage of this game in any way, shape or form, especially not with macro hacking. It's not a thing. It's never the gamer's fault.
Definitely not. No, but let's talk about the game. I know Bully's, he hasn't yet to get into this game, which is crazy to me. He's too busy off getting them platinums in shit games, but that's okay. We'll talk about that later. No, this game for me, from the day I loaded it up, I think what spoke to me is one of my favorite open world, third-person shooting games is Metal Gear Solid 5. I think it's got some of the best mechanics going around in terms of movement and shooting. And straight away when I started playing this game, this felt like that. And I've seen comparison videos where you could almost argue that it's literally ripped directly from Metal Gear Solid 5, but I don't care. It's some of the best shooting you're going to find in any kind of game. So the fact they've brought that mechanic to this game, and it's essentially Starship Troopers on crack. I'm in love with it. Like, it's literally bringing back all my memories of Starship Troopers back in the day, shooting bugs or going to the planets, and then something we don't even realize there's a whole other side to the galaxy where you can start fighting robots. So the amount of times I played with friends at the start of this game and said, "Do you realize you can play against robots?" Like, what? I only thought there was the bugs, and the fact they've got scope to add a whole bunch more to this game. There's another faction coming soon, which has been leaked as well. I think they do the battle pass stuff really well. I think the fact that it never goes away, it's always there. There's a non-paid one straight up the front, which has heaps of good stuff in it. And then all the stuff you're earning in the game is used to unlock these other battle passes as well. You don't have to drop real cash. If you just play the game, you're going to find super credits throughout the world. You're going to unlock super credits throughout the other battle passes to then use those 1,000 super credits to unlock the next battle pass. And I think people can say pay to win. This game is far from pay to win. I think this is one of the best implementations of not only a live service, but of battle passes down to a T, where it doesn't look like it's trying to nickel and dime you at all. It's everyone's got different ways to play the game. Everyone's got different versions of weapons they prefer. There was a meta issue they had at one point where everyone was using a loadout, which I'm guilty of as well, because it was
that
the best
shotgun
loadout
was epic before they nerfed it. Was it the breaker, I want to say?
Yeah, the breaker. It's still really good. Like, I sort of jumped off it for a bit and tried a few other weapons, but going back to it, it's still just as good. Like, its recoil is slightly higher than it was. It has 3 less bullets than it did in its mag previously, but it still wrecks. It's still got the same amount of damage. So,
wait, can I just jump in for a sec?
Yeah.
Now, Bully, I'd just like to take your temperature as we're going here, mate. What is the likelihood at this point of the conversation that you'll be picking it up?
0.
Is that 3? Is that 3% or 30%?
That was 3. That was
0, 0, 0.
There was a 3 and a 0 there. I thought that looked 30. I'm going with 30% for Bully.
Is it the robots that aren't doing it for you, Bully, or?
Yeah, the robots, the bug, the whole lot. It probably will make sense when we discuss another topic shortly as to why. But I've just the short answer for me is I've really gone off multiplayer games, and don't get me wrong, I everybody I've heard speak about this, I've seen vision of it. It looks great, fantastic. I've just gone off multiplayer games.
Okay, fair enough. So we'll sit you at 30% sale at the minute. Unky Dunky, dive back into your sales and EB Games mindset. Get this sale done. Come on, speak to Bully. Speak his language. Let's get that up over 30%.
Because I'm not sure what's turned him off multiplayer. Maybe it's the Call of Duty that he's been playing, the PvP stuff. But, I mean, what I think sets this game apart is, you can actually play it solo, and you can do a fair bit of the game solo. I could play a medium to hard difficulty by myself and play it as a completely separate game. I almost play solo as like a stealth game. You almost kind of feel like Sam Fisher moving throughout some of these levels using different loadouts that you have to do than when you're with a group, and had different kind of fun.
Do you know, I often find myself playing solo, but it's because everyone else pisses off.
It's because you keep tossing grenades at him.
Not just grenades, Bully. You can rain all kinds of fire on the friendlies.
I think this is some of the best multiplayer I've played in terms of co-op experience, where I think the whole playing community is at large quite a good one and very positive. I think everyone that comes into these games, even the newbies, like, I'll jump into like quick games and just jump in with a whole bunch of levels 1 to 10. I'm currently sitting at level 41 with my 80 odd hours played, and just going through that world and jumping in there with all my good stratagems and all my good weapons, and then you're showing them sort of what to work towards, and it's just a really fun game and really social. Like, the amount of times I play with just random people who've ended up playing tons of games, and you're chatting on headset, and I'm one of those gamers that will literally mute everyone in the game and just play without talking. This game, you can do that as well. There's plenty of ways to ping things and that, but I found myself sometimes even on mute, people will be talking through, and I can hear them through the TV saying stuff, and then I feel the need to pick up my headset and just start speaking to them. And you create these really good bonds with these guys as you're going through these levels, especially on hard difficulties where you really have to sort of strategize about who's using what at what time. And, you'll call in an airstrike and just yell at everyone to sort of get back before it comes in, or you just call it on top of everyone anyway, and everyone dies. But it's just the amount of different moments I've had in this game. It's not like you get scripted moments in games all the time, like big, Call of Duty moments in games that are fully scripted, and you go, whoa, that's amazing. This game has that, but they're not scripted. They just happen organically throughout the world. Like, that's what I love about this game, is every single game, the amount of stories I've been able to tell with people from work, with you, Troy, just the amount of stories I've had that are just absolutely epic. Like, even looking on the screen now, there's the mech that came in sort of not too long ago, where I had one of my mates, he was in the middle of a game, I dropped into his game, he was on evac, he was getting pushed back through the world by tons of bots just coming at him. I could see him just backing away. The evac was coming in. I've called him my mech. I've run out there. I've just taken out all the mechs. He, for some reason, thought I was one of those mechs. He had a couple of shots at me, then realised it was me coming to rescue him. And I've taken them all out, and then we've both gone back and both evac'd with all our samples and everything. So it's just small moments like that are just littered throughout this game. And I'd be hard-pressed to say you don't get one of those moments, or if not more, every single time you drop into one of those planets.
Let me throw this at Unky. I would assert there's no scripted moments in this game. There are spawn points. There's like, you're calling the evac unit, and then yes, you're going to get like horde mode waves at the end. But other than that, it's like, it's just an open sandbox. Players have some fun, and players are finding the fun in this game. And Arrowhead, they've hit a hole-in-one on this one, and I think they might have been blindfolded in the tee box. Like, they had no idea this thing was going to be so huge, and it is just chaotic fun at its best, at least when I'm playing it anyway.
No, it's always chaotic. It's always fun. It's one of those things like, I would say friendly fire's always switched on, so you really do have to check your rate of fire or whatever your gun you're using. The electric guns can, cause mass death amongst your group if you're not being too careful. And
did you hear the song they released about that?
No, I didn't.
You got to check yourself before you're going to wreck yourself.
Oh, that's definitely about you. That's for sure.
Oh, wait, look, Bully, I think we've just lifted him to 50% purchase. Bully, how are we going?
10.
Oh, we've
10%.
dropped 20%. Unky, keep selling it.
I thought we're going from 0 to 10, so I thought we'd actually doing all right. But no, it is gameplay over story or anything like that. There is a story being sort of told. You sort of have to. Yeah, there is. And you got this whole world thing going on about Super Earth, and we're pushing bugs. I don't want to get into it. There's a game master at the head of it all. Even just a simple thing like bringing.
That story's great.
The what I like is I didn't just drop mechs into this game. There was this whole thing we had to, as a collective group, liberate a planet. And that's what I like about this. Everyone has got the same goal. It's not different, servers or anything. It's literally everyone's on this same thing trying to liberate these planets. So when a large, task comes in, everyone is working towards that. So to get the mechs, we had to sort of hit this planet where the mechs were at, and we had to eradicate them to make sure the mechs got made, essentially. So we all worked towards that. Once that planet was 100% liberated, we got the mechs. So just small things like that. It's very D&D. He's always creating small mini stories. You don't really know what's going on. We had to just recently sort of go to the Terminated planets and take out a whole bunch of stuff there, but that could lead to something else. And I just think the scope for this game is huge. I think the fact that it's Sony-owned, I think Sony's, they were trying to push the whole live service stuff, and, everyone was a bit like, oh, I don't know about that. Live service, not great at the moment in terms of, the way, especially something like Suicide Squad was received. I actually didn't find that game and stuff, but in terms of staying power, it doesn't have what this has got. And I just think, looking down the track, I've spoken to you about this, Troy, I think in terms of being able to bring other, IPs and stuff into this game that sort of would suit it well. We were talking last night about Horizon potentially being, either skins, or you drop into a planet, you've got robot dinosaurs, you've got Killzone you could bring into this, and even Astrobot, you go into a world, there'll be Astrobots getting around there. But there's scope to have different sort of outfits brought in from all these other different Sony franchises, because it is owned by Sony, I think is huge. And I think that's what's going to keep this game going. And I think you can just keep bringing different factions. They've already shown they've got the staying power. Yes, they might introduce a patch that, stuffs up the stability of the game, but usually within 2-3 days, you sort of back in and the game sort of settle itself. This lighting in this game is ridiculous. It doesn't, for something that's, generates a new version of that world every time you drop in. This game is absolutely gorgeous, especially with those storms and stuff hit. Now you've got meteors and stuff that can start dropping in. You've got electric storms that now come in. You've now got flying bugs that have just hit yesterday, as I found out, which are a pain in the ass to kill. But it's just they just keep pushing this stuff out, mate. They are a nightmare. They are so hard.
Are they just on the bug planet, or are they also on with the Terminators?
Just the bug planet at the moment. So you'll find these little mushroom spores, big mushroom spores. You've got to try and take out. Otherwise, they just keep spawning from that. You can be one-shot by these things that swoop you, and they are scary as hell. And they come in quite a few of them as well. So
can they swoop in and pick you up and drag your way up into the air and then drop you? Because that'd be epic.
That has not happened to me yet. I have definitely been swooped and one-shotted, but a lot of times they're a bit of cannon fodder. So, jumping in the mech, I've found is probably the best way to sort of take care of them. Just chuck your machine gun up in the air and start firing blindly at all of them. Most of the time you'll take them out. But
wait, are you suggesting there's times where you're not firing blindly? Am I playing this wrong?
definitely you should probably aim. Maybe, I don't even know if you're aware of the first-person mode you can click into with your guns as well, which is another thing epic in this game. Most games might give you the option of first-person or third-person. This game you can play however you like, and a lot of the guns can benefit from that first-person mode, like the railgun, for instance. If you overclock it too far, it'll blow you up, but if you go into first-person mode, you can see the little meter rising up to red, and you've got to let it go, and it is a generally OP gun, which they kind of nerfed a little bit, but no, just the amount of things in this game. I haven't been this blown away by as Bully says, multiplayer game for a long time. And I am not generally a big multiplayer game player, but something that's done this well, that's co-op, that I can just jump in and play solo if I want to have that experience as well, which is a completely different experience than the multiplayer experience. But again, making friends, having fun, the scripted moments, the way it plays in terms of graphics and performance. I think for the amount of stuff that's generally happening on the screen at once, there's not many times where you're dropping below that 60 frames per second, which I think is outstanding considering how much is usually happening on the screen at any given time.
It is outstanding. And Bully, look at this bit of footage here, man. This was great. This was Unky and I playing last night, and this little canyon run thing here at the end. Unky, do you remember the AT-ATs come up over the top ridge and start snobbing? This is one of those just crazy unscripted moments where you just find yourself in the middle of the battlefield, lasers coming at you left, right, and center, and then suddenly they're behind you. It is just awesome, chaotic fun. I can't speak highly enough about this game. I think this is game of the year, hands down. I'd even put it in a game of the decade list already. This thing has nothing but upward potential. Bully, give me a percentage. How close are we to that sale button?
0.
All right, wait. I've got it, man. I've got it. Look at these biomes, Unky. Talk us through the biomes. How good are they?
Got him. We know how much Bully loves the biome.
He's off to get his credit card, ladies and gentlemen.
He's off to vomit.
No, I know we're talking about graphics and stuff, but I have to say, and I don't normally talk about sound much in games, but this has got to be one of the best sounding games I reckon I've ever played as well. When you call in those hell bombs or even just set off one of the more scripted nukes and the whole thing just explodes and you can see it and then the wind hits you, my God, this game is just singing on so many levels, orally, that I cannot speak higher of it. I just think I wasn't expecting to like this. I was expecting to like this game. I wasn't expecting to love this game, and I'm in love with this game. This is, for me, a 10 out of 10 experience every day of the week.
And this is also, I would put this on one of the ones that for me, I won't be deleting it off the PS5. Even if something else, like a big single player story, 30 hour, like a Spider-Man 2 or something could come out in the future, and I'd still keep Helldivers 2 on there because it's drop-in gameplay. And for me, I'll solo play it and play it on, trivial, then easy, then medium. I'll play it on easy or medium. I'll drop into a 15-minute run, have an absolute blast, and then you could easily jump off to another game. They have absolutely nailed this. Unky, what do you think about this? Off the top of my head, hadn't considered it, haven't pitched it to you yet. What are the chances we get a GT7 style patch that implements PSVR 2 to this game? How would that go?
Well, considering they've just announced PSVR 2 winding down production of them, I really highly doubt that's going to happen somehow. I don't know if I'd want it. There's too much going on the screen. It'd probably make me feel sick playing PSVR 2 in this. I mean, it'd be cool to immerse yourself in the planets and the world of it, but don't think it's going to happen.
Look at this grenade moment.
Oh, here we go. Is this me? All I hear is Troy go, oh, shit. And then I'm like, what? And I'm like, I think he's dropped a grenade. And I'm like, what's happening? And then, right at extraction as well. Am I dead yet?
I think it's about to happen. I'm convinced I get this stratagem call correct and I'm holding the stratagem in my hand. And no, I've actually flicked the wrong thing on the D-pad and I'm holding a grenade instead of the stratagem. And then I just throw it at my feet. And right here, oh, shit, bang! There goes Unky. I'm flying off the edge of the cliff. Absolute chaos.
See, Bully, this is why I need you to get the game, mate. This is what I'm dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Can we get a hashtag real gamer in here, please?
Speaking of hashtag real gamers, Bully, this will be the final check-in. I'm loving it. 2 thumbs up. As I said, game of the year, hands down. Definitely on my game of the decade list. Unky, you seem pretty high on it, man. Score it for me out of 10.
11.
I love it. Great answer. Bully, final time I'll ask. What's the sales chance?
0.
Ah! You're killing me, Bully. You're killing me.
0.
Well, mate, I'll have to pass it over to you then for game 2 this evening, as you are the lead investigator for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Tell me things. Do I want to be reborn? I'm not sure that sounds pleasant.
You want to be rebirthed. And if you reckon Helldivers is a Game of the Year contender, this is...
It's the Game of the Year winner, mate.
Play Final Fantasy. That's all I'll say. I don't know. Everyone's probably going to have their own opinion on it. I know there's been some little criticisms of the open world sort of stuff, but for mine, I've really enjoyed it. The remake I loved, but it was, being set in Midgard, it's confined. There's not a lot of exploring to do. You're pretty much set on a set path that you got to go in, and when you start this game for the first hour or two, you're on that sort of set path, and then all of a sudden you get thrown into this open world where you can go off and explore, do what you want to do, basically do what you want to do. You can play ahead with the main story, or each area, and I think there's I'm up to the 5th sort of open world area at the moment.
Now, when you say open world area, do you mean biome?
No, I do not. And so each one of those areas, there's a set number of things that you can do to try and complete. There's research to do, or things to find, or enemies to fight, and then it's not just a matter of fighting them as well. They give you certain criteria that you need to fight them with. So you need to use a particular attack, or you need to beat them with at a certain time, and all that sort of stuff. So
I've really enjoyed like a melee kill versus a magic kill, or
it's more so as part of the combat. You'll see on the screen there, you've got 2 bars under the enemy's name. So the top bar is their health, and then the bottom one is basically, it's what they call a stagger bar. So if you can,
is it Sekiro? Is that what we're talking about then? The Sekiro mechanic, Unky. I'm blanking on their term.
I can't recall
because they had the 2-1 and you had the defensive one. You had to wear down their defense before.
Yeah, it's similar. It's similar.
Similar to a degree, but what you do by using certain attacks and targeting their weaknesses, it increases that bar, and by using the attacks against their weakness, it increases it further and further. Once it fills, it staggers them. So it basically, doesn't knock them out, but it
opens them up.
Yeah, it puts them down so they won't attack you. You can then go in an all-out attack, and you get an increased amount of damage while they're down as well. So there's a bit of tactics in it in terms of, it's not just sitting there button mashing and all that sort of stuff. I don't know. The story itself, I mean, I really loved the original back in the Final Fantasy VII back in the 90s on the PS1. That was one of my all-time favorite games from back then, and it's hard to go back to. Just the story still holds up, the gameplay to a degree still holds up, but it's terrible to look at. But then you jump into this, and it's like reliving the game from 20 years ago, but in a modern setting from my point of view, where when you play a game and you have it in your head how you think it's going to look, and you go back and play it, and it's never the same as what you think it is.
Yeah.
But this is almost like, I want to play Final Fantasy VII, but I remember it looking so good back in the 90s, and then you put this in and you go, oh yeah, it actually does. And you can play it in that modern style, which is a weird sort of way of looking at it. And it's one of those things that when they're remaking or redoing games, some games get it right, some don't. I think this is just a fantastic conversion. What am I up to? About 60 odd hours I've put into it. I'm probably 3/4 of the way through the game, but I've been doing literally everything, every side quest, every mission, every intel piece within each of those areas, open world areas that I sort of play through. I've literally been doing everything along the way. And the only thing I will say is, and for those that have seen it, there's been some pretty heavy criticism about some of the mini games they've got in the game itself. So I think the 2 biggest ones is a piano mini game. So you collect music sheets, and then you've got to use the left and right stick to hit. It's basically a radial, like a clock. So you've got to hit certain notes. It's like a rhythm game, basically.
Is it kind of like the guitar in Last of Us, the way that functions?
No.
Or is it Last of Us 2? The one you can play the guitar in?
No, well, it's almost like a throwback to Guitar Hero and those sort of type of games where...
Ooh, now you're talking my language.
You see you can see the line going out towards the edge of the radial, and you've got to hit it at the right time. But each left and right stick has got 8 separate things, and they quite often will come at the same time. So you're trying to focus on one, but then you out the corner of your eye, you've got to keep an eye out for the other one, and you're flicking. And the first couple that they sort of introduce you to are not too bad, but I think I'm up to the 5th or 6th one now, and it's getting quite crazy. Like it's getting really difficult. And then I think the other one which has copped a lot of heat from what I've seen is the sit-up mini game, which is
you had no troubles there with the teacher boy.
Well, I've done it. I can tell you that.
How many hours, out of the 60 hours of game time, how many was spent on that one mini game?
59.
Now, and does that mini game support the Wii Fit controller?
No. You know what would have been easier if if they just had been able to strap a Wiimote to you and just do the sit-ups yourself. would have been easier. But the button combinations in that, and it's not, so it basically rotates in a square. So you've got to push left bumper, right bumper, left trigger, right trigger, or a combination of those as it rolls around, which isn't too bad in and of itself. You can get yourself in a bit of a routine. Where it mucks you up is that it'll stop after 3 or 4 cycles, and then you've got to do one of either 2 things. One is pull the trigger down halfway, watch a circle fill up, release it, and then pull it again quickly. Or the other one is a rapid trigger pull for about 10 or 12 pulls to fill up the meter and then keep it moving.
That sounds like my old man fingers wouldn't let me play that at all. That sounds
about the least fun I can have by pulling, I reckon.
Well, you can actually, as trying to look for tips as to how to do it, there was one of the tips was take the resistance on the DualSense off. To make it a lot easier, which it does, but it's not so much the action itself. It's a trip once you start getting into a rhythm, it trips you up with these little interruptions, and because they're not the same interruptions every time, you get into the point where you're literally having to hit 3 or 4 buttons every second, and you don't have the time really to compute sometimes what action you need to take, whether it's a rapid trigger pull or where it's the pull and hold halfway. So it's with
the rapid pulling mini game, does it support the flashlight plug-in controller?
Again, would have been easier.
Now, Bully, I've got to ask a question. You got through it though, yeah, in the end.
Yes.
So do you think you're actually ready to get past the door in Hi-Fi Rush now?
No.
Because that's just come to PlayStation as well. So if you want to go for trophies for a challenge, mate, Hi-Fi Rush is for you.
The only way I'd be able to, well, see, you laugh at that, but the only way I'd be able to do that is when that mode that they remove the need for doing the actual rhythm with the combat. But
I'm not going to start.
But that was one of the other tips that I when I looked up, it said mute the sound because the music in the background actually upsets your rhythm while you're trying to do it. So I've turned off the feedback on the triggers. I've turned off the sound. I've literally just sitting there like some Zen Buddhist monk, trying to work my way through it. But got through it. You don't need to do it. It's not part of the story. It's just a side quest. But if you're going to
#real gamer, right?
If you're going to want to try and platinum, which is what I'm trying to do, there's items that you collect for doing these mini games that you need in order to get the platinum. So
just unlockables, you mean?
Yeah, well, there's weapons and armor and those sort of things which you don't need, and I think that particular one is sort of mid game, so you're going to get better items and better equipment further down the track anyway. It's not a make or break, but to get the platinum, you need to literally collect every single materia piece, armor piece, everything. So I'm in the process of doing that, and I'm just really enjoying it, really loving it. I've got no negatives about it. I know there was some issues with the graphics on the performance mode. There was a few people that were critical of. As you can see, shout out to Digital Foundry. They did a fantastic teardown analysis of what the problem is with it in performance mode. I'm not even going to try and regurgitate it, but go look it up. It's amazing. Sorry, back to you. Well, as you can see from the goggles that I've got on my face, I couldn't tell the difference anyway. So don't worry me.
This guy could. It was something for me. It was something for me. I've probably 18 hours in, and I feel like I've barely scratched the surface. Every time I jump back into that game, I feel like I've only just started it, and I probably have, to be honest. But no, I definitely noticed it going from graphics mode, which is locked at 30 frames per second, seems to be putting out a 4K resolution. Very, very pretty out in the open world. But for me, the 30 frames is probably a little bit too slow. I do prefer a 60 frame per second. As soon as you chuck it on that, yes, you do get that. But yeah, it definitely does look very sort of blurry and muddy in specific areas, especially that first open world area. It can look vastly different to sort of inside parts of the game. But as of today, there's actually been a patch that has upped the performance mode resolution. You can now pick a sharp or soft thing to go with that performance. And where I am, it's going to be hard to tell at the moment because I'm just up. I don't know if Bully knows the part of the game where you have to gather a whole bunch of crew to be soldiers, and then I think I'm just about to hit a mini game with that with the giant tank. You know where I am, so you can't really tell there. Like, it all looks pretty good up there. It's not going to be till I get back head down to the sort of open world area that I'm going to be able to check that graphics mode for sure to see if it looks much better than it did. But no, I'd have to back Bully up. But this is a very, very good game, and once I've got the time and I'm not spending 80 hours in Helldivers, I do jump back into this game, and it's testament. It is an awesome game. It's a very, very good open world game. The combat is awesome. I think I prefer this style of combat to the Final Fantasy 16 stuff, which became a bit button mashery and hit the same button combos every time. This has got you thinking a bit more about your crew and who you're going to use and what abilities you want to use, and unlocking different limit breaks and using different spells and different groups. You can pick who you want to be in your main group, and you can flick those around as well. So I really do enjoy how they've upped the combat. I think they've really thought about it. I think in the previous game, Cloud found it very hard to deal with enemies in the air, and you always had to flick to Barrett to sort of shoot them out. But now, well, dodgy, if you hit dodge then attack, Cloud will do this attack that will hit aerial enemies. You can either draw yourself up to them, or he'll shoot this sort of green sort of, I don't want to call it a laser, but it sort of comes out of your sword and hits them out of the sky. So I think they've really thought about how to make the combat a bit more accessible without you actually having to flick to those characters. That being said, flicking around those characters, I think, is how they want you to play this game. They want you to play it kind of like a turn-based game where you are using those different characters and their abilities. And the more you use them, the more you're going to be able to actually use those abilities when you flick to those characters, because the way it works is you've got to unlock these action points. And the only way to do that is to use that character in combat. So it does let you sort of flick around. And I just think the characters all do really well together, and utilizing all the different skills together. You've now got new combo abilities as well, and there's so many different combos. I'm probably nowhere near the amount that Bully's unlocked, but the amount of different combo moves you can do with some of these characters and combinations is insane, and it's just so flashy and so cool. You can see where the money's gone in this game, because when this game is in combat and the amount of particles and stuff flying around and the things happening on screen at any given time is just ridiculous, and it doesn't skip a beat. I said it looks a bit muddy, but running at 60 frames per second, when all that stuff's happening on screen, you don't really have a chance to see how muddy it is, because the amount of things happening on the screen at any given time is just ridiculous. And some of the bosses and the Titans, whatever they're called, the summons that you call in, one of them is called Titan. It's just epic to do all these things. And I just think the way they've incorporated to this one game is just ridiculous. I don't know how this game's got as much content as it does, because it's freaking ridiculous.
Okay, let me throw one at you, because I haven't finished Final Fantasy VII Remake, so there's no way I'm touching Rebirth yet. But my question is to both of you blokes, let's start with Bully. How have they gone marrying the seam between the Remake and Rebirth? Was it like a seamless transition, or is there a noticeable change in quality, up or down, or anything like this?
Oh, I haven't touched Remake for probably 12 months. So you don't, if you're just jumping into it, if you're playing one straight after the other, I think you'd notice it. But if you have a little bit of break in between the two, you just come into it and go, well, this is a 2024 top notch. As Unky said, there's a lot of money.
Top notch.
First top notch.
No, second. Helldivers, mate.
But you can see they've spent a lot of money on it, and a lot of time and effort has gone into crafting and creating the world. So there is a difference. I mean, Remake came out 5 years ago? 5 years ago now.
2020, I think it was, wasn't it?
So you can tell the difference if you're looking at them side by side, or you played one straight after the other. My recommendation would be is just have a little bit of a break in between.
Play something like Helldivers 2, maybe.
Oh well, if you wanted. If you can actually get on that now, I don't know.
Yeah, they've mopped up their own mess. They didn't apologise to the gamers for the false accusation, though.
Well, I don't know. I put Final Fantasy 7 in and just was able to play it straight away, so I don't know.
Fair enough. Unky, your
those
thoughts,
issues.
man, on the seam? How did they go marrying up the end of Remake to the start of Rebirth?
Yeah, it's done pretty well, and they recap the story sort of at the start as well. There's a lot going on in that story as well, so I do recommend watching a recap of the last game if you haven't played it for a while.
Is it like a 3-minute cutscene sort of thing?
Kind of, yeah, and they kind of get you caught up, and the way the game opens up, I think it was in the demo as well. They sort of go back a little bit and sort of start telling the story anyway. So anyone that hasn't played Remake, I think you probably can still start this game and not be too lost with what's happening in this story. Essentially, it is.
Did you come in on game 2? Does that make any sense to anyone here? What's going on?
It's not ideal, but you can. Like, I agree with Unky. You can. You watch the recap, and you won't have the ins and outs in the background behind, like the intimate details between the characters and all that sort of stuff, but you could still jump into it and have a fair understanding of what's going on with the story. You'd probably just be missing a bit of that background with the characters and the interactions, and some of the things that they'll say to each other or little things that they'll do might go over your head. But the story itself you can follow pretty well, I think. Even though Unky said there's a lot going on with the story, it's not Kingdom Hearts style convoluted nonsense going on where
by the sounds of things, towards the end it's kind of going to get there with multiple time frames and stuff, but I think essentially the main story you've got is find Sephiroth is essentially your main task at the start of the game, and that's a pretty simple MacGuffin.
Well, would you make those same arguments for somebody coming in and playing The Last of Us Part 2 without playing The Last of Us Part 1? All the arguments you just made.
I mean, you could, but again, you're missing. So, like, without putting spoilers into it, but there's obviously something that happens halfway through The Last of Us Part 2, which is pretty gut-wrenching for those that have played Part 1. You wouldn't, if you had a recap, you'd sort of go, oh, okay, yeah, no worries.
That's what I'm imagining. Like, to me, the idea of playing Rebirth before Remake would be the same. It's from an outsider's point of view because I haven't played it, but I don't understand the difference in why you'd come in and start at Rebirth not playing Remake, and same argument as why you'd play Last of Us Part 2 without having played Part 1.
Well, I suppose I guess that the way I'd probably say is because if, obviously it's part of a trilogy. So the trilogy is going to span, by the time they release the third one, it's going to span something in the order of 10 years. So the reality is that they need to make the game in a certain way that is going to draw people in 5 years after Remake come out and then 5 years after Rebirth come out. Otherwise, you're going to get diminishing people returning into it over that 10-year period of time. So you'd almost get to the point where you go, well, if our sales have diminished so much between Remake and Rebirth, what's the point in making the third one now? Because we're going to get even less out of that. So they've really had to look at the way that they put it together so that someone can jump into it now and just jump into it and play it and have a fair understanding. And as I said, they'll miss little bits here and there, but for the most part, I don't. You could still have a fantastic time playing the game. You just miss little bits, and it's mainly just the character interaction. The story, I don't think you'd miss too much. The recap does a great enough job, and as Unky said, it's the basic premise when in the first hour of the game is Sephiroth bad. Kill Sephiroth. Yeah, obviously.
And they do a good job as well at showing you the relationship between the characters in those early moments as well and building those things. So it's something the first game didn't even really do as much. I think this game does right off the bat. So I think they know, as Bully said, I think they know that they need to have these not only as part of a trilogy, but just be able to play as standalone games. I think that's what this one does really well. I think with a game like Last of Us, it's that's very story driven the whole way through. It's not an RPG. It's an action game with really heavy story moments and stuff. And yes, you're still going to feel the moment in Last of Us when certain things happen. You're going to get characters' motivations just by what they've done in the game and what their motivation is towards the end of the game. Whereas something like an RPG, you've got that time to spend with it. Last of Us is a 20-hour game. This is 70 plus with a whole bunch of side quests and stuff. So a completely different game. So whereas the first one's a bit more linear with Remake, this is an open world game, and you could arguably say this is a completely different game to the first one. If I'm speaking candidly, this game feels completely different to Remake.
Okay, then that just prompts me for this question. What is the save game import? Is there any benefit in game? Do you get anything? What
you get
carries
some
over?
You get some if there's a save game file on your system, and it has to be a PS5 one. You can't have a PS4 save, as is to my understanding. It has to be the PS5 version. You get some bonus materia and some items and stuff like that, but it doesn't carry over. Say if you had if you had a max level Cloud in Remake, you don't walk into the first 10 minutes of Rebirth at level 99 and everything unlocked. You basically kick back to the start and you have to start again.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Then my final question to you blokes, if you didn't have any other points, is just slap a score on it for me. I accept that neither of you blokes are finished, but where's it sitting for you? And Bully, top slot's already taken by Helldivers 2, mate.
12. Unky gave Helldivers 11. I'll give this a 12.
Yeah, fair. Unky, where's it sitting for you? How far below Helldivers 2 is it?
It's hard to say. Obviously, they're completely different games, they're completely different experiences and what I play. But I mean, as far as what RPGs go, this is probably sitting around a 9 for me, only because it hasn't. When I play these games, I really like that point where it gets a hooks in, and all I'm thinking about is playing that game. And it kind of happened at the start, but I've kind of been Helldivers has been that game for me where I just want to get back to Helldivers. I just want to get back to Helldivers. Whereas this, I've played it for 18 hours. It doesn't feel like that. Probably a good sign that I'm putting that many hours in, and it doesn't feel like I'm arduously doing these things. I'm enjoying everything I'm doing, but it does to hit a 10 for me. It really needs to have that hooks and me wanting to go back. Not saying that can't happen, just saying right now, this time of the year, especially with a couple of other big sort of open world games coming out, Dragon's Dogma tomorrow, as well as Rise of the Ronin coming out, which both those games are sort of piquing my interest for something a little bit different. Final Fantasy is that known quantity, being the fact that I have played Remake. I have played, with Cloud and Final Fantasy before, so these other games that might be a little bit different could pull me away, but yeah, there's no doubting the quality of this game. So a 9.95 for me at the moment, but as Bully said, I mean, I'm nowhere near where he's up to. I'm sure there's a lot of things I haven't seen yet, story-wise and gameplay-wise, that is going to elevate this higher. That's fair. Any final points, fellas, or should we move on to Bully's Dear Diary? It's Bully's reason for not playing Helldivers. That's what we're calling it. All right, fellas, let's bring it up then, shall we? Here it is, the hashtag Real Gamer himself. Ladies and gentlemen, you are looking at a list of, Bully, give me the count. However many it is, Bully's about to tell us, but these are all the platinum trophies Bully has picked up this year so far. It's starting from this year. Bully, how many games have you platinumed, mate? 29 so far. How many of them are you not proud of?
I'll explain. So
you can't say
I'm not proud of any of them, because there was a part of a premise in it. So for anybody that's watched the channel for a long period of time, they'll know that I'm a physical game collector. I've got shelves and shelves and shelves of games. What I have found over the time is it's almost like this lack of attention span where you go, well, what's the new shiny thing? So this week it's I might be playing Final Fantasy, and as you mentioned, you've got 2 games coming out tomorrow. Oh, I've got to go and get them, and then now Final Fantasy gets put on the shelf, and I'll never see it again. And then we'll go over to Rise of the Ronin, or we'll go over to Dragon's Dogma, or whatever it is. So I sort of had this change in mindset at the start of the year that I was going to go back. Yes, I'll still play some of the newer games, but I really wanted to go back and just pull games.
Paw Patrol. And get the platinum.
Well, to be fair,
Bluey's something adventure as well.
No, there wasn't Bluey's. To be fair, the Paw Patrol one was started by my young fella, and I thought, he's got about 80% of the trophies. I might just mop that one up.
Yeah, fair.
That's probably the only one I'm not entirely proud of. But anyway, there is a reason.
Doki Literature Club, I see at the top there.
Yes, Doki Literature Club. That is.
Part of that one, are we?
Yeah, I am. Play that game. It is freaky. It is.
That supports the Fleshlight plugin, doesn't it?
It is a horror game. It is a straight out horror game.
Not from the screenshots I saw.
It starts off like the biggest weed thing going around.
His wife walks into his room while he's playing it,
and about an hour into it, it gets bizarre and crazy. It's funny. The only thing I'll say with that one is, if you want to platinum it, you need a guide. That has got some far out trophies. That is no way. I don't even know how they think people would have gotten that platinum organically because you can't.
I'll tell you why, mate, because they're only for hashtag real gamers like yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, so now, Bully, I have to pick your brain. Which one out of those was your favourite one to platinum?
Well, the one that's not on there, which I just finished this afternoon, I think you're missing a couple off of there, but Persona 3 Reload, I platinum this afternoon. So that's probably the one I'm most proud of.
No, I said Predator. Which one was the most fun to like platinum? I know because some platinums are a bit of a grind. So which one did you have the most fun platinuming in terms of it was sort of pretty frictionless? Like I know Spider-Man 2 is a great example of that fun platinum. What's on your list that you'd say?
Oh, out of those ones, look, I don't think Persona was too bad in terms of like it wasn't stressful and all that sort of stuff. But you just need to be mindful of for those that haven't played it. Like there's two parts to the game, but the one part you really need to be careful of is your day-to-day activities and your social links that you don't run out of time or miss them because a certain character leaves. So I really enjoyed that, and I went back and forth with it over a period of about 5 or 6 weeks. I'd play it for 3 or 4 days and then put it down and come back a week later and all that sort of stuff. But I have to be honest, I reckon some of the ones, and this is also part of the reason I did it, is just a bit of a throwback and nostalgia to how you used to play games when you were younger, where you'd sit and extract literally everything you could out of that game before you moved on and got something else.
Yep, mainly because you couldn't afford anything else.
Yeah, because you couldn't afford anything else, and then you have to sell it or trade it in to get something else. So that was also part of the reasoning behind it, and then getting into that sort of mentality as well. Throwing back to games that, whilst they might not have been around when you were younger, certainly have a tinge of nostalgia to them, if that makes sense, is that the gameplay or the way it plays, for whatever reason, I remember playing games like this when I was a kid, and that sort of nostalgia really comes back. And I reckon probably the other one that I actually really enjoyed, which the other two I'll say that I really enjoyed, there was one called The Artful Escape, which is a side-scrolling.
Monkey's pumped that one up on the channel before. He was a big fan.
I did like that game.
Yeah, that was an awesome little game. Probably took about 4 or 5 hours to platinum, but so it's not overly difficult, but just really fun. And the other one, which was another one, which you can argue it's a cheap platinum, and you can if you want. It took me about an hour and a half. Was The Light and the Darkness, which is it's sort of a narrative type adventure set in France during World War II. And
that's legit, man. That game is legit.
Yeah, and it follows a Jewish family and how they get effectively rounded up and sent to concentration camps, and how they were initially part of the French community, but then the French turned on them, and it's really a really impactful game. As I said, it only takes about an hour and a half to finish it, and you pretty much get the platinum just for playing it. I thought that was an amazing game to play as well, and probably this is the other benefit of it as well is I don't solely play games just because I look at it and go, yeah, I'll be able to get that platinum, but it's certainly looking at lists of games that are achievable, easy platinum. I'm not looking, I don't want to stick in a game that I'm going to be tearing what's left of my hair out and going crazy trying to get a platinum. I want to enjoy the experience as well, so not just do it for doing it. So I've been looking at lists and games that are easy but worthwhile playing. So that's then led to games and me experiencing games this year that I would never have even looked at or played in the past. So some of those ones, and I can go through them, is the Gardens Between, which was a little indie game, little platform game. I thought that was an amazing experience as well. What Remains of Edith Finch is another one which is getting a bit older now, but I really enjoyed the story behind that, and thought that was really good. And then there's a couple of other little indie type ones, I guess you'd call them. There's I Am Dead, which I thought was a funny little game, and it's just.
Which was the least favourite?
Least favourite to platinum, Resistance Retribution, which was.
Yeah, I saw you playing that. I couldn't believe you actually going for that. I started up that thinking, nostalgia's a thing. Resistance, I remember it being good. That game does not hold up too well on a PS5.
Oh, it's hard yakka, and it's more just the camera. The shooting in itself isn't too bad, but it's the camera that sort of gets you a little bit bored undone from time to time. But that was that was hard in terms of not difficult because of the gameplay, difficult just because of the way the game was, and it's just a straight port off a PSP game.
So am I to understand this correctly, Bully? Was it like mid-December, early December, you decided I'm going single-player platinums next year? Like, was that sort of the intent?
Yeah, pretty much. So I sort of got mid-December. I sort of was thinking about it and looking at it, and then I thought, well, when am I going to do it? What am I going to look at? And sort of, I basically hit the first of January and thought, oh yeah, well, let's just make it a year thing and see how we go and give it a crack and go from the 1st of January. So that's pretty much where I've...
Nice. I'd just like to remind you, mate, do you remember mid-December you and I played an online multiplayer game? It was Poker Club. And I'm just wondering if that experience at all has led you down this path of single player only.
I certainly didn't hurt. And for those that aren't aware, if you've ever played poker with someone that doesn't look at their cards and just blind bets everything and how frustrating that is, you can understand why that may have turned me off multiplayer games.
I found it a very enjoyable experience and quite humorous.
It's kind of the way he shoots without aiming in Helldivers.
Well, if you go back
just tosses random grenades around.
Yeah. If you go back and watch
there's a theme, Troy. There's a theme.
Oh, there is. I'm a fuckwit. If you look back at the start of the Helldivers 2 footage, man, you'll see on our first drop, I throw the bloody turret down, the stratagem for the machine gun turret, and then 2 seconds later, I walk in front of it and it shoots me. I kill myself in about 2 seconds flat. It's amazing. All right, guys.
Bully, I plead with you. Please join me. Please join me on the Hellfront.
It's funny to watch Troy destroy you.
You don't even have to play, Bully. You just have to be in his lobby so that I can't join in.
That's it. You can be the 4th player. Just land on the planet. I don't care.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for episode 91 of the Gaming Enforcement Agency. Unky Dunky, thank you for second slotting it this evening, my friend.
Always my pleasure.
Bully, 3rd slot, holding us up beautifully all evening, mate. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys, that's it. Let's installs on the channel as always. Maybe we'll be able to talk Bully into some sort of Let's Play. Who knows? Hit him up in the comments, maybe. But what else could you do with Geek Aloud? Like it, subscribe it, you'll never miss it.
Oh, that was luck. Hey, that's something.
Oh!
Old Uncle Donkey. Gee, Donkey.